on Module 3, post-award management. And we'll spend a little, this is what I was supposed to start with earlier today, of course, but we're going to consider some of these topics. I don't know if we're going to get to all of these today, but in fact, I know we will not get to all of these today because there's quite a lot of material. So what I want to talk to you about right now is are the regulatory considerations before your research can start and before your spending can start. We'll talk about setting up accounts, and we'll spend a little time today on award duration and monitoring expenses. And I think after that, we will end it for today and continue in a couple of weeks. But let's get started. So here is Dr. Messi getting an award from Dr. Fauci at NIH. What do we need to be careful about before spending occurs or before the research occurs? Again, with NIH, you have to be careful about the financial conflicts of interest at the award stage. There's a regulation at the proposal stage. There are regulations at the award stage for NIH and financial conflicts of interest. At the award stage, we have to make sure that the investigators completed financial conflict of interest training. Tulane has a module developed on the city platform for the investigators to use to comply with that training requirement. This has to be done once every 4 years. According to the regulation, spending and research cannot commence unless training has taken place. So my office is looking at the records in city to make sure that the investigators have completed their training. Grantees must report all financial conflicts of interest to NIH, if there are any, prior to the expenditure of funds. So once a conflict of interest is discovered by the grantee institution, there's a 60-day window where that has to be looked at, a management plan has to be put into place, and you cannot spend money until that conflict of interest has been reported to NIH. The reporting is done through a module in ERA Commons. Research should not begin before you have human subjects approvals in place. This is the website if you need to explore more information on the use of human subjects. We have encountered issues here at Tulane, especially in our social sciences, and students who are doing dissertations in the social sciences who are not aware that some of what they do is subject to human subjects research. And when it is discovered that they did not have protection under an IRB approval, all the data that they collected for that study cannot be used in any kind of publication. It can't be used as the basis for any other proposal going forward. That data is useless because it did not have an IRB approval. And again, that has happened a couple of times here because of lack of understanding. It's been greatly improved over the past couple of years, but it was there were some difficult moments when a student's PhD dissertation was seriously delayed because they did not have that IRB approval in place. Research involving animals. I know, again, you're going to make sure that your subcontractors, your subrecipients are following the animal care and use regulations prior to starting research. Subrecipient monitoring is a very complex area, and I'm going to go through some of what we do here at Tulane. This is another area that is looked at during an audit, and so you need to make sure that you have controls in place and the ability to document what you are doing with subrecipients on your projects. So NIH gives a grant to IX, and IX gives a sub-award to Tulane University. Tulane University is a subrecipient in that example. We issue a questionnaire to make, so we can gather information from subrecipients that we have not done business with before. There's all kinds of information that we collect on this questionnaire. And here is an example. Here is part of that questionnaire. And you can see that it is very extensive, but this is all part of the subrecipient regulation that we need to follow, so we do not get out of compliance. And it's also to protect the organization. It's to protect Tulane. It's to protect IX. So these are the kinds of things that you need to look at. After we ask a subrecipient to complete a questionnaire, we review it, and then we do an assessment to see if it's a high risk or a low risk subrecipient. If it is a high risk subrecipient, when we issue a subcontract, we will increase the controls, increase the terms and the strictness of the terms and conditions that we impose on the subrecipient. We might require documentation for each invoice. We might increase technical reporting so the principal investigator can really keep on top of the performance. We might require travel reports. We might also conduct a site visit. The PI could do this. You could accompany the PI to do a site visit. And we might require audits at the subrecipient's expense. This is a matrix that Tulane developed for what we consider to be a low risk or a high risk. And you might want to consider some of these elements for IX as you begin to broaden your research and you engage with more subrecipients. You may want to have this set of this risk assessment matrix, as you determine it for yourselves. We also laid out who is responsible for what before we issue a subaward to a subrecipient. So we laid out what is the PI responsible for, what is my office responsible for, what is the financial accounting office responsible for. And then we also laid out who is responsible for what during the award when we are monitoring our subrecipients. We're looking at Tulane, we asked the principal investigator to review all invoices coming from our subrecipients because we want to make sure that the principal investigator says, yes, they are performing that work. The principal investigator is in the best position to determine whether or not a subrecipient is performing as was expected. And so the performance should have some kind of alignment with the invoices that are coming in. And if it's not, we expect the PI to notify our office because we will work with our grants and contracts accounting office, and we might issue a modification that puts further constraints on the subrecipient to make sure that they are performing as we need them to perform. All right, so that's the that is the subrecipient monitoring. We have a lot of materials on that we can share with you because again, that is a area that is heavily audited by the federal auditors. You need to make sure prior to setting up your awards and prior to spending, if you have cost sharing, I hope you all understand what cost sharing is. This is a financial commitment towards the total cost of a project from a source other than the grantee organization. Oh, excuse me. That's that's incorrect. It should be the granting organization. So the sponsor fund. So if NIH is requiring you to cost sharing has to come from somewhere else and not NIH, not in another NIH grant. Some programs do require cost sharing. The funding that is used as cost sharing on a federal grant must follow the same rules for spending that we've discussed previously. They have to be allowable, allocable, reasonable, and necessary. The regulations for this are in the uniform guidance. Cost sharing can be mandatory. That means when you read the notice of funding opportunity, you're going to find requirements for any kind of cost sharing. It has to be included in the proposal budget, and it's going to be included in the notice of award. It's going to be recognized by the sponsor as a cost sharing commitment. When that grant is awarded, cost sharing has to be tracked and reported by the grantee organization. Voluntary cost sharing is not required, but is committed by the grantee. If you do this, we try not to do this at Tulane, but if you do this, this also has to be tracked, and it has to be documented, and it has to be reported in your accounting records. So grants have to be set up in separate accounts. This is now we're at the account setup stage, and these are the best practices that we know that a lot of universities have in place. Grants must be set up in a separate account, but that's a regulation according to the uniform guidance. You're going to delay accounts until conflict of interest training is verified, and you've submitted any financial conflict of interest reports to NIH. And also, there are several what we do at Tulane is to set up for one grant account, we might set up multiple sub accounts. One is to contain the grant from the sponsor. Another one could be any kind of cost sharing that Tulane is committing to the sponsor, because I just told you that we have to track that and report that. If we have a salary cap, we also set up a separate account, sub-account for tracking the salary cap. Any kind of portion of the budget that will be sent to a sub-recipient, that's also contained in a sub-account, and we do that to protect those funds, to make sure that the principal investigator does not accidentally spend money that is supposed to be going to a sub-award.